Tonight, you're all in for such a treat as we delve into Mike's new book, Unique Eats and Eateries of Connecticut, the People and Stories Behind the Food. Mike Urban is an award-winning food and travel writer and the author of 4 books on New England cuisine, Clam Shacks, Lobster Shacks, the New England Diner Cookbook, and the New England Seafood Markets Cookbook. He's a regular writer for Yankee Magazine, contributing more than 25 food articles over the past 6 years. So without further ado, I am going to hand things over to our featured guest, Mike Urban. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Dana, and season's greetings to everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight and hooking in here. Sorry we can't all meet together live. I've been at RJ Julia in Madison, I think 4 times in the past, and it's always a real fun experience to stand up there and talk with everybody, show a lot of interesting food shots and everything else, and just have some good conversations, and of course, sell some books. This book was 2 years in the making. I signed up a contract to do it in December of 2019, and I was going merrily along doing my research when, of course, in March of 2020, COVID reared its ugly head and everything came to a grinding halt. So the publisher and I agreed to put off the publication date from fall of 2020 to fall of 2021. And the book came out about 2 months ago, but all's well that ends well. There are about 85 places in this book, unique, interesting, different, unusual kinds of places. These are places that I like to refer to as being organically unique. And by that, I mean, these are places that are, basically a lot of mom and pop places, places started by individuals, by couples, by families. They aren't the inventions or creations of marketing firms or restaurant groups or PR operations. These are really homegrown restaurants. And I think in many ways, these are the most interesting, fun, and enjoyable ones to go to. Also keep in mind, this is not a collection of the best restaurants in Connecticut. These are just the really most interesting and unusual ones that really stand out, that are sort of, iconic, have something really interesting or many things interesting about them. And that's what helps hold this collection together, I think. As Dana mentioned, I've done 4 other books on New England cuisine. This one gave me a chance to do a deep dive on my adopted home state of Connecticut. We've been here, my wife and I, for 30 years. We came here from Chicago in 1991. And it's been a real learning experience for me and a lot of fun just to be able to drive around to a lot of the parts of the states I didn't know that well. And I've learned a lot along the way. So anyway, there are about 100 slides we're going to be going through rather quickly. I'm going to yammer on quite fast. Save your questions until the end. We'll see them on the thing. I'll be happy to answer them. This is sort of a road trip. We're going to go sort of county by county, starting in the southwestern part of the state, and then circle around and come to an end over there, I believe, in New London County at the end of the whole thing. So to get started and to advance the slides, I'm going to use the word next. You'll hear that a lot. So I want to describe something about food groups. The USDA food groups of fruits, grains, meat, veg, fish, everything else. In Connecticut, we have 3 basic unique food groups. Next. First one, hot buttered lobster rolls. These are unique onto Connecticut. We'll be seeing more of these later on. Next. Number 2, steamed cheeseburgers. You're not going to find these things anyplace else except central Connecticut in a very small handful of places. And next, of course, New Haven coal-fired, special brick oven pizza. We'll be taking a look at some of the best places for that. Okay, next. Like I said, we'll start down by New York in Fairfield County. Next. First place we're going to visit is a little place called Antojos. This is a family-owned Colombian restaurant in the northern part of Norwalk, not down in the trendy South Norwalk, Sono area, which has a lot of great restaurants. This is a little family-owned place in a little strip mall up in the northern part of the city. Next. And what you can do is get a real representative sampling of what Colombian cuisine is like there. This is a picture of a lunch platter that you can get with the representative samplings of everything. You have, fried plantains, rice and beans, fried eggs, some grilled chicken, and then arepas, that disc you see over there on the right-hand side, a corn sort of disc type thing that's very prevalent in Colombian and Venezuelan dishes. By the way, there's a burgeoning community of Colombians and Venezuelans in Norwalk growing, and there are several restaurants like this that cater to their particular tastes and needs. But it's a great place to go get introduced to this type of cuisine. Next. Bloodroot. This was a revelation to me. This is down in Bridgeport. It's a feminist restaurant and bookstore. It's been around since the 1970s, owned by a couple of septuagenarian feminists who cook vegetarian and vegan food and have a tiny bookstore in this place. And they do all sorts of interesting cooking. Next. Including this deceptively simple looking salad, but they do all kinds of stuff, particularly vegan, with a small kitchen staff, a lot of antique mismatched tables and pictures of famous women on the walls on the inside. And if you're lucky enough to go in the more temperate times, next, they have this beautiful outdoor patio with this lovely willow tree out here where you can enjoy your lunch or your dinner on this sort of tidal creek on a dead end street in Bridgeport. Who knew there were things like this tucked away? I certainly didn't. I'll be going back again in the future many times. Next, Goulash Place. This is over in Danbury. This is in a residential neighborhood. Here's this little restaurant stuck down on a little street corner here, owned by a guy, a Hungarian emigre who came over in the 1980s and transformed this small butcher shop into a restaurant. Next. It's very redolent of what you see in Central and Eastern European, neighborhood type restaurants. You stop in with family and friends, have a glass of wine or a bottle of beer. Next. And, a plate of good old fashioned Hungarian stick to your ribs type food. Here you see some Wiener Schnitzel, roast pork, potatoes, green beans, beets, carrots, et cetera, et cetera. Wonderful stuff, along with, of course, their namesake goulash. Next. Lakeside Diner over in Stamford. There's a wonderful bunch of restaurants in this thriving city down by the waterfront, but way up by the Merritt Parkway in the northern part of Stamford is this diner that's been around for about 30 or 40 years. Next. And it's called Lakeside because it sits next to this little pond or small lake where you see a lot of waterfowl and seasoned ducks and geese paddling around out there while you look out these beautiful picture windows. And this is a small place. It's a small mom and pop operation. They're known for their pancakes, particularly their red, white, and blue pancakes, which are, strawberries, blueberries, and whipped cream. And next, their most famous dish, homemade sugar cinnamon donuts. People come in and buy bags of these things and take off with them, but they've been cranking these things out for a long time. And it's right off the Merritt Turnpike. You can hear the cars kind of whizzing by off in the distance there. A great place to stop for a snack or a meal. Next. Back over to Danbury, Minus Carne. This is a Brazilian operation, about a block and a half west of Western Connecticut State University. Next. And of course, it's a cafeteria style place where you sort of go and pick all the different types of food. They have their grilled meats, as you see here. And if you can see those yellow orbs also in the barbecue pit there, those are whole cored pineapples that they grill up there. But you go through a line, you just select your greens, your salads, your rice, your beans, a bunch of other things, put them all together. Next. And then when they slice up the meat for you, tell them how much or how little you want, and you end up with a tin plate like this, and you can either slap a lid on and take it to go or sit down at one of their tables and enjoy it on the spot. Next. Litchfield Hills. This is up in the northwestern part of the state, of course, sort of a Tony area, wealthy farms. A lot of New York people have their second homes up in this part of the world. So there's a lot of really nice fancy restaurants. Then there's also places like this. Next. Bohemian Pizza and Tacos. This is in the Bantam section of the town of Litchfield. It has these fake palm trees, has surfboards out front, Christmas lights all the way around 365 days a year. And next, dining rooms that look like this, several of them. There's crazy leather skin booths, a two-sided fireplace, canoe hangs from the ceiling, and like a 70s teenage kid's basement dream, a bunch of album covers stapled to the ceiling and the walls. They also have a bunch of big fish tanks embedded in the walls. Next. And it goes from one room to the next, just beautiful, fun places to go. Very nostalgic for someone as ancient as me. Next. And the food is quite good too. They have wonderful pizza, New Haven style pizza, good salads, tacos, of course, are very good, burgers and everything else. Straightforward stuff, but just a real fun, funky, different kind of place for the area that it's located in. Next. Okay, then over in Woodbury, this is sort of the antiques capital of Connecticut. This is sort of the southern part of Litchfield County, not too far from Waterbury. Dottie's Diner, wonderful place, been around for quite a long time. Dory Sperry bought the place about 15 years ago. She used to be with the Mayflower Inn up in Washington Depot, a five-star resort hotel, and she went into the diner business. Next, where she serves up heaping portions of stick to your ribs food like meatloaf, mashed potatoes, fresh veg, does a wonderful chicken pot pie, and once again, next, she does donuts. Michael Stern of road food fame used to live in Western Connecticut. He considered these the best donuts he had in the country, up at that time, about 10 years ago. Probably still feels the same way, even though he moved to South Carolina. But she does wonderful, wonderful donuts based on the old recipes from the previous owner. People, again, buy bags of donuts and take off, but it's also a great place to settle in, tuck in, have a nice meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Next. Okay, in the town of Winstead, you have this funky little Tierney 1930s diner set at a rakish angle on a corner of Main Street with this funky little hot dog guy out in front. Not much has changed here over the years. It survived a fire, it survived a flood. Next. You can sort of see in the interior, most of it is the original stuff, the original tile, the original stools, the original counter, the owners on the other side cooking up very basic diner food. I must say there is no such thing as a private conversation in this diner. What you say is going to be heard by everybody else and vice versa, but it's a very congenial place and a wonderful spot just to stop in. Also note the barreled roof up there. That's also original wood roof like that, curved. Just a lot of fun just sitting there and soaking the vibes. Next. The capital region. Okay, let's go over to Hartford County. This is, of course, the north and central part of the state. Next. Let's start at Blackie's in Cheshire. This is a very famous hot dog place. Been around since the 1940s. Used to be a gas station that served hot dogs. Now it's a hot dog stand that no longer pumps gas. Great place. Next. They have an interesting, unusual way of serving up when you walk in. They have this long counter and you just yell out 1 or 2 or whatever. And this gentleman here will put in your order for the number of hot dogs that you ask for. 2 is the recommended amount minimum for anybody, but you just bark out your orders. The hot dogs come out. And next. They have a very unusual way of cooking these hot dogs. As you can see, the skins are split. They boil the hot dogs in oil until the skin's split open. Then they give you the dogs, whatever number you ordered, and you serve yourself with the condiments. They have their own stone ground mustard, but more importantly, on the right, they have their hot pepper relish, which they developed back in the 1950s. There used to be peppers growing on the hill in back of where Blackie's is, and they make a big batch up every year in the spring, still hold to this tradition. And when it runs out, They wait till next year to keep going. Blackie's is not open on Fridays. It's an old tradition. It's the Irish Catholic family founded it. You don't eat meat on Fridays, and they serve very little else but burgers. Hot dogs, and occasionally burgers for those. But hot dogs are the thing to get here. Next. Lily's Soul Food. This is a great restaurant in Windsor, about 10, 12 miles north of downtown Hartford. Started out as a catering business. It has a little bit of that flavor still left. It's sort of a cafeteria style place. Again, this kind of operation where you go through, point at the stuff you want. They give you nice heaping, gigantic, serving portions of food. Next. All sorts of wonderful Southern comfort foods here. One day I was there, had a helping of ribs, black-eyed peas, collard greens, cornbread, and they also have wonderful sweet potato pie for dessert, but wonderful fried chicken, all sorts of other real stick to your ribs type stuff. And they serve all their food in these sort of blister pack type things, which is good because nobody can ever finish what you get. And you can eat there. It's kind of a small indoor dining area, a couple tables outside, but a lot of people get their food there to go. But a great spot. Next. Okay, Pho 501. This is a Vietnamese restaurant in East Hartford, over the river from the capital city. The owner of this place started working here as an omelet cook when it was just sort of a breakfast joint back in the 1980s, 90s. He worked some of his Vietnamese dishes into the menu, and people really seemed to like it. He eventually bought the place out and started serving Vietnamese food, particularly the Vietnamese, national soup, which is called pho, which we'll see in a second. Very broth-based soup with a lot of noodles in it. Next, he commissioned to have his life story sort of painted on the side of the building. There he is as a motorcycle delivery guy when he was living in Saigon. Family members are here. You can see the lower part. You can see a couple of his pups, from years gone by. And if you can read right there, it says, "Never forget your roots" in the lower right-hand portion. That's sort of the theme of this place. And this is what this mural is all about. But anyway, next. Here is a shrimp pho, a sampling of what his handiwork is all about. All the broths in here are spent at least a minimum of 24 hours on the stovetop. He really cooks them down. Incredible flavor. Noodles, lots of fresh veg chopped in. You get it with chicken, with shrimp, with beef, all different kinds of flavors to varying degrees of hotness and varying sizes, small, medium, and large. Next. Okay, Shady Glen. This is quite a famous place. This is in Manchester, about 15 miles east of Hartford. Nice old 1940s, 1950s, this isn't, your sort of manufactured poodle skirt and bobby socks kind of place. This is the real deal. Next. Here are their grill cooks. They've always worn these little bow ties and these white shirts. The waitresses have white aprons on. They're all, in uniform. This is just a throwback, but it's always been like this here. And their most famous dish is next. The wing cheeseburger. They take slices of American cheese, put them on the grill, crisp them up, put them on a bun, throw a burger on top, melt some more cheese over the top, and there you have it. This is a nationally famous dish they developed, sort of, chip off those little pieces of cheese, pop them in, and go from there. And next, there's no shortage of wonderful ice cream treats here. A lot of seasonal ice cream flavors. Right now, I'm sure they're going strong on peppermint. In the springtime, it's peach. Summertime, they have watermelon. Fall time, pumpkin and apple and a lot of other things. But a great spot to go just to kind of do a real genuine throwback to 50, 60, 70 years ago. Next. Tangiers. This is an international market, mostly Middle Eastern food, not so much a restaurant as it is a grocery type store. Next. As you can see, it used to be in West Hartford, one of those rare ones that moved from suburbs to city. It's now in Hartford's West End, kind of a trendy neighborhood on the west edge of the Hartford city proper. Wonderful mostly Middle Eastern, foodstuffs of all different sorts and types, fresh, bottled, canned, everything else. If you look on the right-hand side over there, you can see a gentleman with a black apron on. He's one of 4 Lebanese brothers who own the place, co-owned the place. They sort of took it over from their parents about 15, 20 years ago. And where he's standing is a little sandwich bar where you can get some, casual eats like next. Their phenomenal falafel sandwich with dried chickpeas, yogurt, lettuce, tomato, and a nice pita wraps it up real nice. It's worth a trip from anywhere in the shoreline, up there just to go try this sandwich sometime. Next. Okay, New Haven County, our county, your county. We're going to see what we got here. Next. We'll start with Donahue's Clam Castle, probably familiar to many of you who are at least along the shoreline here. This has been around for decades. The Donahue family, which owns a restaurant next door, bought it several years ago and kept the tradition going. They've done good things with the whole place. It's a really nice, classic clam shack right next to Nutmeg State Beach. And of course, next, the best thing to get here is deep fried seafood. Here's a basket full of deep fried whole clam bellies, which is my favorite and many others people's favorite as well, but I do eat clam strips also. I do not discriminate. Next. Then there's Gizen in Brantford, an excellent vegan restaurant. This started out, a husband and wife team had a food truck and still have it, I think, but they became quickly known as great cooks of sweet potato fries. And from that, they decided to open a general vegan restaurant, and they found a house that they converted into a restaurant on the east side of downtown Brantford, and it's been all no looking back ever since then. They also have a farm. They recently bought a farm out in Durham. They're growing a lot of their own produce. Next. And they do, this is their vegan nachos, which is every bit as good as any nacho plate you're going to get that's loaded down with meat. And by the way, they say that at least 80% of their clientele is not vegetarian. People go there to eat just because the food is so good. Next. Okay, up in North Haven, Liuzzi's. This is a wonderful gourmet Italian foodstuffs operation. Just, wonderful stuff throughout the entire store. Big deli counter, big cheese refrigerator that you go by, a lot of prepared foods, a full meat market. They make sandwiches, all kinds of stuff in there. Tons of Italian imported Italian stuff, from olive oils to all sorts of different types of condiments, fruits, veg. Emigres, people moving from New York up to Connecticut have been known to weep when they walk in this place because it reminds them so much of the food they had when they were kids. They say, I can't find this anyplace else in Connecticut. This place is a godsend. Next, as you can see, the other thing they do is they make their own mozzarella as well as other cheeses, and they're known throughout New England as one of the best purveyors of mozzarella cheese. And here you got a bunch of Parma hams hanging here. But just a great place to go for anything and everything Italian. Next. Okay, Long Wharf, and you're driving on I-95. You've probably seen all these trucks lined up along there on the Long Wharf Drive. This time of year is probably maybe 8 or 10 out there, but the summertime there could be as many as 30 or 40. Great place to go to get sampling of pan Latin American food, everything from Mexican to South American to Caribbean. Next. All sorts of stuff here. Here you see a soft taco and a burrito cut in half. And then in the upper left-hand corner there, it's Mexican Coke, which is like our Coca-Cola, but it's sweetened with cane sugar, not with granulated sugar, for a different sort of taste. Try it sometime if you haven't already. Next. Louis' Lunch. Couldn't do this book without including Louis' Lunch, the supposed place where the hamburger was invented around the turn of the 20th century. Wonderful, small, cramped place with very strict policies and everything else. They cook their burgers in these very unusual vertical broilers, the gas broilers, where they take this fresh ground beef, which they grind every day, and put it in these cages, put it in this vertical broiler where the grease drips down. They get nice broiled brown nicely. Then they take Pepperidge Farm bread and toast that, a white bread. And then the only condiments they have are lettuce, tomato, and raw onion. Next. So your finished product looks like this. It's very tasty. It's good. They don't have ketchup. Don't ask for ketchup. They don't have mustard. Don't ask for that either. This is it. It's their way or the highway. This is the way they serve their burgers, and that is that. Next. Okay, in Waterbury, I was much surprised that Waterbury is in New Haven County. Waterbury, of course, is a very large Italian-American community. Lots of wonderful Italian-American restaurants up there. But the one to me that really seems different and unique is Sultan's Turkish, a Turkish restaurant just off of I-84 in a retrofitted old Friendly's restaurant building. It's right across the street from a mosque, as a matter of fact. And they have this beautiful light Mediterranean color scheme to their dining room, beautiful murals of Istanbul and the Bosporus. Great place. Next. And all sorts of wonderful Turkish food. Here you have a cold appetizer platter with baba ganoush and hummus and other spreads. Put them on hot, freshly baked Turkish bread. And also, one other thing to keep in mind, Saturday nights, they have belly dancing. So be sure to go there. I think they knocked it off for COVID, but I called about a month ago to check, and sure enough, the owner said it's back on. So check it out on Saturday nights if you can make it. Next. Ted's. Food group number 2, steamed cheeseburgers. Ted's is in Meriden, which is probably ground zero for the steamed cheeseburger. There's several places in town that serve them. Ted's probably being the best. What is a steamed cheeseburger? Next. What they do is they take chunks of beef and put them in little metal trays, and they slide them into that oven type thing you see on the right there, that metal box. The lower box is actually, underneath that box is a big gas thing that heats a big pot of water, and they steam the burgers in these little metal trays, each one in an individual tray. On the left-hand side, where you can see the burner going, they steam wads of cheddar-like cheese, and the end result is, next, this wonderful burger concoction on a hard roll with lettuce, tomato, and here you can have ketchup if you want to, just ask politely, I guess. But anyway, a wonderful experience, different kind of burger, not for everybody, but I enjoy them, and many other people do as well. Next. And perhaps the most unusual place in the entire book, and many of you along the shore, I'm sure, familiar with this. This is the place where you sit outside on tree stumps at these red top tables, fresh flowers on every table every day. You can bring your own side dishes, you can bring your own booze. All the food is cooked over an 18-foot long wood-fed fire pit. Next, where one of the biggest specialty dishes is our fire roasted clams that come on these hot grates. Don't touch the grates, but with their special sauce put on the top there with tomato and garlic and butter. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And they also do the lobsters over the flames. They do steak. They do certain types of fish fillets wrapped up in aluminum foil, and wonderful corn on the cob that they, steam, cook on the husk over the fire and take it off, strip it down, dip in a big bucket of butter, and off you go. Next. All right, before we leave New Haven County, just a quick review of some of the best pizza places, coal-fired oven pizza that have made New Haven the famous pizza place that it is. Let's start here with Pepe's, next. Sally's, next. Modern, my wife and I just moved about a block and a half away from this place. This is going to be the death that makes me want to be eating there once or twice a week. Next. Roseland Beats, which is over in Derby in the Naugatuck River Valley, about 12, 15 miles outside of town. This is our white clam pizza. That's another signature of these New Haven area pizza places, is the white clam pie. And finally, next, Zapardi's in West Haven. Okay, next. The Connecticut River Valley, where I used to live over in Old Saybrook for about 30 years. We just recently, like I said, moved to New Haven. Here we go, next. Let's start at Bill's Seafood in Westbrook by the Singing Bridge on Route 1. Wonderful outdoor place with also a lot of indoor room, year-round facility. Right next to Singing Bridge, which is a steel grate bridge. When cars go over, it makes a zzz, sort of humming, singing sound. And you sit there by the little, I think it's called the Patchogue River or Creek right there. Great for next. Primarily deep fried seafood. Here's a basket full of fried clam strips. Anybody getting hungry? I thought you might be. Also great stuff, a wonderful lobster roll. They have a sort of a rowdy music outdoor bar in the summertime. It gets pretty crazy. And a lot of boaters like to go here. And it's also year round, like I said, indoors. They have, I think, Dixieland jazz bands on Monday nights most of the time in a large bar area. Next. And then on the Connecticut River, up in Haddam, the Blue Oar, sort of tucked into the riverside here. It's this great place next to a marina. Lovely, colorful picnic tables. You can bring your own libations here as well. They do burgers. They do lobster rolls. They have somebody who brings in special desserts, special pastries from unusual place. Food's good. It's not great, but the one thing I found that I really enjoy next is a tangerine salad. Very refreshing, very nice. And it's great just to sit out there and watch the boaters on the river and the wildlife, the birds and everything else going by. It's just a very serene, tranquil place to see what it really makes the Connecticut River Valley someplace really special. Next. Okay, this is the only event that I have in the book. This is the Essex Shad Bake. It's put on by the Essex Rotary Club every first Saturday in June rather, and they build this big fire pit outside the Connecticut River Museum right by the water side, and they roast all these shad fillets right by the river here. It's a one-day only event. Next, here's how they prep these fillets. Shad, by the way, are an anadromous fish, which means they spend most of their life out at sea and then they come in to freshwater to mate, not unlike salmon. And shad fishermen, a seasonal thing, in the late spring, they haul, millions of these fish out of the river and other estuaries up and down the New England coast. But what they do is they put these things on wooden planks and they season them up, and then they take these strips of salt pork and roofing nails, actual roofing nails, and nail these things to these planks, roast them next to the fire for 15 or 20 minutes, take them off, remove the nails, give the fillets to everybody along with a slice of apple pie, some homemade potato salad, and you get a beer or wine or something like that. Go under a big tent and have a wonderful meal. Next, Grano Arso. This is one of the few upscale places I have, upper, white tablecloth type dining places in the book. But it's a very, very special place. It's in Chester. It's been around about 4 years. Connecticut Restaurant Association voted the best restaurant in Connecticut after only been around about 2 years, back in 2019. Excuse me. They do, the owner, Joel Gargano, does all his own, he locally sources his own flour for pasta. He has it all hand ground in the back room. Next, and does amazing things. This doesn't really do it justice, but here's a bolognese dish that had there, many other things, but everything coming out of the kitchen is just very innovative, very good, and highly recommended. It's in the old bank building on Main Street in Chester, and it's beautifully decorated and designed by Joel's wife, Lanny, who also, she's Vietnamese, and she occasionally goes into the kitchen and does some special Vietnamese nights, carry out in particular. Just a wonderful place to check out. Next. And Old Saybrook, which we recently decamped from. I'm going to miss this place a lot. Himalaya Cafe, Indian Bistro and Lounge is what I like to refer to as sort of an Indian beatnik restaurant. You go inside, and there's couches and pillows, and they have Bollywood movies on the wall. It's very small on the inside, family owned. You know, the service is kind of slow, but it's really intimate. The food is fantastic. They have this sort of hunky family member, this guy in his early 30s, you know, behind this small bar with a few tables around. You can watch him cook on the stove top, cook in the tandoor oven while you enjoy your meal. Just a really fun, enjoyable, different way to experience Indian food. Next. Oh, here's some little nibblers you get when you first go there, dipping in chutney and mango lassi and wine, whatever, but we'll go on from there. Next. Lobster Landing, food group number one, of course, the hot buttered lobster roll. In the rest of New England, you're probably aware lobster rolls are typically served with chilled lobster meat and tossed with a little bit of mayo. In Connecticut, it's pretty much the only way people want to have it is warmed lobster with warm, you know, tossed in some warm butter. Bacci, who owns this place, does an incredible job. Sort of an older Italian guy, sort of walks sort of stooped over. He's got his big bushy beard, and he's always has a bandana on his head. He walks around. He's a real nice guy, very talkative. He has all this lobster meat here hand-picked, you know, straight off the boat, which is unusual, very time-consuming, but it makes all the difference in the world. And he takes that lobster meat, he has it poached a little bit in some seawater, then he takes these Italian rolls that he gets from Vermont of all places, toasts them up on a grill, and then puts the lobster meat in with a little drizzle of lemon, a lot of butter, and off you go. Next, the end result. Beautiful, tasty, hot buttered lobster rolls like this. Again, generally considered the best hot lobster rolls in the state, if not the world, since this is one of the only places where we have them. Next, O'Rourke's Diner. Brian O'Rourke, become a friend of mine. He is been working here probably since the late 1950s when he was a teenager, and is doing an incredible job. He bought the place from his uncle, I think, in the 1970s. One of the most innovative diners anywhere. Every day he's coming up with some new stuff in the kitchen. He comes out, he bakes bread every day. Something's always going on. He brings out samples of foods he's been, you know, working on in the kitchen, shares them with customers. You know, not all that big on the inside. It has probably 10 tables and a counter that holds maybe 8 people or something like that. And a lot of his food, next, his standard diner dishes have an Irish inflection. In this case, this is Irish soda bread French toast with his own 3 different types of homemade jams that you see there on those 3 slices. Got some clotted cream at the top, but he's constantly doing new things in the kitchen. He's a great guy. He's always experimenting. All the food there is just wonderful. It's a real revelation every time you go there. It's something different. Next. Pino Smokehouse is also in Middletown. You folks at the Wesleyan store probably recognize all of these 2 places anyway. This I consider to be one of, if not the best places for barbecue in the state of Connecticut. It's attached to the side of a Ace warehouse, Ace hardware store rather, building, and has this beautiful patio on the outside that's open just in the summertime, or warmer weather, I should say. Of course, you know, all sorts of trellises and stuff like that. There's this big triangular wooden Viking table that holds as many as 15 people. And you can just sit out there and have a wonderful barbecue meal, you know, while you smell the barbecue smells coming off, wafting over out of the kitchen from the smokers. Next. But also they have this barbecued egg roll, one of the more unusual dishes, which is stuffed with mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, pulled chicken, flecks of red bell pepper in there, nice dipping sauce, something different. But you know, their brisket, their pulled pork, their pulled chicken, all the other things, the ribs, everything else, barbecue chicken, all, you know, top-notch stuff. Next. Taste of China. This is a Chinese place in Clinton. Husband and wife team started it and still own it. He is from Madison. She is from the sort of Chengdu central part of China. They met while studying in Indonesia a number of years ago, and they decided to move to the United States after they got married. When they did, she claimed she couldn't find a Chinese place that was any good, so she bamboozled her husband into buying a Chinese restaurant, and they named it Taste of China. And she started introducing the shoreline to this, the wonders of, you know, Chengdu, central Chinese Sichuan cooking. Next. Here's just one example of a dish. It's a spicy beef appetizer dish with, sort of fiery browns, not fiery, but, a sweet and hot brown sauce, onions, green bell peppers, just great stuff all the way around. They do all kinds of interesting stuff. They have one dish called ants crawling on trees, which is a very strange name for a very strange dish. It's very, very hot. So if you like hot food, go for it. If not, I won't stand back. But a wonderful place. Jacques Pepin eats here from time to time. Anyway, next. Yukon Territory. Okay, we're getting up in the upper northeastern part of the state. Next. Ryan's Deli. This is in Vernon, just off I-84 as you're heading toward Massachusetts. A gentleman named Ryan, he apparently moved from New York up to Hartford, presumably for an insurance job of some sort, claimed he couldn't get a good corned beef sandwich, so he opened his own place to fantastic success. Has been here for, I think, at least 30 years. Wonderful deli. Next. Has all the trappings of a real New York deli. That is, you have a whole deli counter with smoked fish, lox, all the stuff you would expect to see in a deli, all the cream cheese, all different kinds of stuff. Big, sandwich board, everything else. Next, one of the times we serve a very nice brisket on rye there with your matzo ball and your coleslaw, and of course, like any good deli. Next. They do at least a half a dozen different types of bagels every day. And again, like any good deli, the menu is about 24 pages long, so you're always going to find something that you want to have. Next. Traveler Food and Books. You go further on I-84, just before you cross the border into Massachusetts, you see this big yellow sign on this yellow roof building. You think, what is this? Food and Books. Well, next. It's sort of a plain looking restaurant in some ways on the inside, but you'll notice that all the walls and shelves are lined with books, books, books. The deal is, you come here and you have a meal, you buy a meal, you pay for your meal, you get to take one free book with you. It's like a big used book exchange. The owner's a husband and wife team, been doing this for years. They bought the restaurant and the theme from somebody quite a while back. There's a big used bookstore in the basement, and people bring books with them to leave. Generations of families have been coming here. Not unusual to see a bunch of people just sitting at a table for hours at a time, reading books, sipping tea or coffee or whatever. And just a real cool place to check out if you are a bibliophile, which many of you, I guess you are, since we are talking from RJ Julia here. Next, Yukon Dairy Bar, wonderful place, great for the students. Also, thank God it's open to the public because the ice cream here is incredible. Next. This doesn't really do it justice, but here's a little sundae I snarfed down one day. They have these picture windows where you can look into the dairy making operations, all this kind of stuff. They have a wonderful agricultural dairy school there from whence they get all their milk-based products, but great ice cream of all different sorts and types. Next. Okay, the Quiet Corner. This is way up in northeastern Connecticut. This next place is also highly unusual. Next. Frog Rock Rest Stop. There was a guy who was a state senator, lived in Eastford, where this is located. Used to take his horse and buggy into Hartford, several times a year for legislative meetings. And when he went past this rock off of what is now Route 44, he thought it looked like a frog. Not everybody agreed with him, but he had it commissioned to be painted to look like a frog. And this is kept up pretty much since that time. People just keep on repainting it to look like a big green frog sitting by the roadside. It's really just a pull off of Route 44, which, is a main highway between Hartford and Providence. And next. About 20 years ago, an enterprising person bought the place, this little picnic stop, and threw in some snack stands, threw in a little antique store, and added a little stage. So on weekends, they have folk music playing here. Just a cool place out in the middle of the woods. There's nothing else around it. And it's just, you don't expect to see it, but you're glad it's there when you do. Next. Okay, then with regard to microbreweries, as you know, there's one on almost every corner these days, and that's good. That's a good thing. But, sort of the great grandfather of them all is Willimantic Brewing in Willimantic, Connecticut. This is in this gorgeous old post office building right on Main Street, not too far from Eastern Connecticut State University. This is the reception area where the postal patrons would exchange business here. It's been converted into a 40-foot long bar area, excuse me. And the owner, he is always brewing at least 20 or 30 different types of beers at any given time. He also brings in beers other local breweries do, and from all around the region. Next. They serve food as well. Here's a nice bowl of chili. They also do great nachos, good food. The building itself, the postal sorting area, has a 30-foot high ceiling, been made into a magnificent dining room. The old postmaster's office has been converted into a private dining room. Next, but the real reason to come here is to drink beer. They have all different sorts and types, and just, belly up, try, as many as you want. Don't drink and drive. Next. Then there's Zip's Diner. This is on I-395 before I-395 even existed. It was, again, on, I believe it was Route 44, although I don't remember for sure. Road that ran between Hartford and Providence or Boston. But it's this old classic 1950s Jerry Mahoney diner owned by a Greek-American family that's owned it for a number of years. They keep it lovingly in its original condition. Serve up great standard diner food. Next. As you can see, corned beef hash, eggs, home fries, toast. It's because of its location, before the interstate popped up, or the interstate highway system, people like Joe DiMaggio, Carl Yastrzemski, even Liberace would stop in there when they're traveling from New York to Boston. It was on the way along. And just a real wonderful place to stop and have a meal. And that big eat sign on the type, that neon thing, you can see it from I-395. Great spot, real wonderful throwback place. Next. Mystic Country. This is the last county, so thank you for hanging in there. Next. B.F. Clyde's Cider Mill. Unfortunately, this place just closed just for the season. It's open from September 1st to December 1st, and it's inland in Mystic. Everybody's familiar with all the seafood places and everything down by the water in Mystic. This is up in the woods, and it's a place, it's the last of the steam-powered cider mills in the country. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. Next. And it's a great place to go for fresh mulled cider, apple cider donuts. In the background there, you can see they, of course, make their own apple cider, but they also make hard cider. That's a tasting room back there. There's for the hard ciders, 21 and over. And there was also this beautiful gingerbread Victorian building where they have all sorts of apple this, apple that, all kinds of stuff they make themselves, and all kinds of different New England foodstuffs of all different sorts and types, not just apple. Next. Captain Scott's, a famous seafood shack. It's on a long, thin strip of land just outside downtown New London between the Amtrak train tracks and a marina. Next, they serve all kinds of seafood, and they're particularly known for their two types of lobster rolls, the hot and cold lobster roll. So the hot one's in the center there. The cold version is on the right-hand side, rather. And they also do really amazing fish and chips. Next. Costello's another shack over in the southeastern part of the state. This is the brother shack to Abbott's Lobster in the Rough. This is where they do all their deep fried seafood. One day when I was there, next, I ordered a whole belly clam roll and got this monstrosity, which was fantastic. Just really, more than one person can eat. Very generous in their portions. And there's shoestring fries on the side there. You can see over that's another trademark of theirs, which I think works out very nicely. Next. Okay, back in the early 1980s, Paul Formica, a gentleman, and his wife were driving up on a road in Flanders, Connecticut, part of Niantic and the East Line, saw an abandoned house. He said, maybe we should open a seafood market. And neither of them had any experience in that, but they opened one in the early 1980s to great success. By the early 90s, they added a restaurant onto it, and they're going full guns. A great place to go get fresh seafood, as you see here, or to have a wonderful seafood meal. Next. They also make what I consider to be the best beer battered fish and chips in New England, bar none, just really incredible stuff. And they also have regular plain fish and chips, not beer battered, but just breaded. Next, and a very saucy, nice looking hot buttered lobster roll here, sort of tarted up with a lot of fresh veg at the same time. Really, really good stuff. The Paul Formica's daughter, Liv, is a Culinary Institute of America graduate, young woman, and she's doing a great job in the kitchen there. Next. All right, the last one, gang. Thank you for hanging in there. Ford's Lobster. This is not too far from Abbott's Lobster in the Rough in Noank. Does anybody know what this place is known for? I can't hear you, but I'm going to tell you next. You may already know it's the lobster bomb, which is a boule of bread hollowed out and about a pound of lobster meat inserted, and then a couple ladles of fresh lobster bisque poured over the top. And if that's not enough, I don't know what else to say. Thank you very much. Next. That's it. Thank you for hanging in there and watching all this. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to your questions.
So that was amazing. If you weren't hungry before watching this, I'm sure you are now. You listed so many great restaurants. So many of my favorites were on there. And I think I have to purchase a copy of this for my dad for Christmas now, because so many of his favorites were on there. He's going to love this. So I hope he's not watching, because I just spoiled his Christmas gift. I just want to send a reminder that if anyone has questions, you can ask them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. But we will get started with the Q&A now. So how long did it take you to go to all these places and finish this book after you compiled all these locations?
It's interesting. Many of them I was familiar with, because I had, as I said, I did 4 of the books on New England cuisine. So, and a lot of I do more of the down marketplace. I do, clam shacks, lobster shacks, diners, hot dog stands, burger stands, pizza joints. I'd been to a bunch of them before, but every time there's always new revelations, new places. So the time frame, from the time I started on this, it takes me about 6 to 8 months to really go to all these places and check them out. And particularly during the pandemic, it was kind of tough. I wanted to go more in the off hours, so there weren't that many people there. And it's just easier on the owners too. They were really, they still are in a tough position. So I like to go at a time when I can talk to them, when they're more relaxed, when I can, sample different things on the menu, when it's not so crowded, when they're not so busy. But, on any of these books that I do like this, it takes me 6 to 8 months to do the field research, but that's preceded by a lot of internet research rather than going out and driving around blindly. Thank God for Google. You can just look up all these places, a lot of places, and sort of narrow it down. So by the time you go out and you hit the field, you have a pretty good idea of what you think you're going to put in the book.
So I'm sure you get this question a lot, so I don't want to ask you what your favorite restaurant is from the book, but what's your favorite type of restaurant? What Italian? I saw a lot of seafood on there. Is there one that you lean towards that you would say yours is your favorite?
Yeah. I would probably have to say seafood. I mean, I did the Clam Shacks and Lobster Shacks books. And then for Yankee, I've done probably, of 25 articles I've done for them, 15 of them centered around seafood. And I'm from Chicago. I didn't eat anything except fish sticks when I was growing up as a kid. I was raised Catholic. I never ate fresh fish until I went to school in New Orleans. Tulane University for freshman and sophomore year, and my taste buds changed coincidentally around the same time. I started eating all kinds of stuff, shrimp, crawfish, and became very curious about the whole thing. And then when we moved from Chicago to New England, it was just coming home. From a culinary standpoint, I said, "Wow, this is just where I want to be." Because I can go to clam shacks and lobster shacks and all these different kinds of places, try all these different types of seafood. So I have to say it's seafood probably more than anything else, if I had to pick a cuisine.
Okay. And do you see a big difference with the food served here compared to Chicago? Do you see a lot of differences in the two places and where you go to eat?
Yes, I mean, I think that's one of the beauties of going out to eat, and I think dining out is just one of life's great pleasures. Just going out, cooking, having food at different places, but the regionality of it all. Again, I mentioned Michael Stern before. He and his then wife did this book called Road Food back in the 1970s. There's probably on its 9th or 10th edition at this point. It's still around. And they went around and tried all the different types of foods in all these different places, mostly mom and pop places, not unlike the kinds of things I have in this book here. And viva la différence. I mean, you like to be able to go to all these different places. There is, in the chain restaurants and a lot of the bigger operations, there is sort of a commonality to a lot of those, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I just like going to the places that are just where you find something different, something that shows off whatever it is that's indigenous, whether it's the seafood, it's the meat, it's the veg, whatever it happens to be. Every place has its own special take on these things.
So a big debate is where you can get the best kind of pizza. So how do you feel, now that we're on the topic of Chicago, how do you feel with Chicago deep dish compared to classic New Haven pizza?
tough. I'm still pretty big deep dish pizza fan.
Mhm.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the thin crust stuff here, but I mean, I was raised on deep dish pizza. And I know a lot of folks on the East Coast here have issues with it. I sort of get it. I can understand why people would say, well, that's not really pizza, but you got to try some of these things. There was a place there, Eduardo's, that made us for many years. I think our business now was spinach souffle pizza. I didn't eat spinach back when I was in my 20s, but I tasted. I just was addicted to this thing. It was incredible. But it's a different approach. So I'm not going to say one over the other. I love them both.
Yeah.
But I have not turned my back on deep dish pizza since moving out here. But like I said, I live a block and a half from Modern, and my God,
You can't deny that Connecticut pizza it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, no, all these places are fantastic.
Yeah. So clearly you enjoy eating out a lot. So what do you do on nights where you cook? Do you consider yourself quite the chef, or do you kind of prefer to leave the cooking to other people?
Actually, it fell to my lap. I was in book publishing for 40 years total. After about 25 years, I went freelance, not necessarily my choice at the time, but I'm glad I did. And when I did, my wife went back into the office. Our 4 kids were, heading toward college at that point. And so she became the regular paycheck and the one who went to the office Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And I became the guy hanging around the house doing these goofy books and working for other publishers as a consultant. During that time, I cooked, for the family, for the kids and everything else. So I'm not a great cook, but, I've learned a lot in doing it. And I love doing it. I mean, I just love getting in the kitchen and making all different kinds of things, playing with recipes. And like with anything else, the more you do it, the more relaxed you get, the more comfortable you get, in the kitchen. So it's just a place I love to go and do it. I would certainly, bomb out if I opened a restaurant someplace. I have no desire to do that. But I love cooking, and it's fun. It's just great to make food for people, that you like, that you love, your friends, your family. That's what it's all about. Not being flashy or showy, but just getting people together and having a good time.
Definitely. Okay, so an audience question that we have: are you working on a new book, and if so, what's the subject?
The same publisher, like I said, this book is part of a series, and I would love to do. I'm very partial toward the state of Maine. In all these New England books that I've done, I just love going up there for a variety of reasons, most of which is food. I would love to do unique eats and eateries of Maine, which would be quite a chore because that's a big state. And I'd have to go camp out up there for a long time, which I'm willing to do because, like I said, I'm pretty much retired. Either that or unique eats and eateries of Portland, which would be a little more focused. Or someday I would like to also do unique eats and eateries of New Haven, once I get to know this area a little bit better. The one I would really like to do, if I could ever find a publisher who was sucker enough to do it, would be 100 Best Seafood Shacks of America. So I could go, not just the New England seafood shacks, but all the crab shacks down in the mid-Atlantic states, all the seafood, shrimp, and crawfish places down in Louisiana, Florida, and Texas, the Gulf Coast, and then all the, Pacific Coast places they have. It'd be a lot of travel, but it'd be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yep. Very nice. Okay, so this one is more of a comment rather than a question, but Claire's Cornucopia in New Haven has served Yale students or parents all of Greater New Haven. They bake their own bread, make all their own desserts, and are famous for their cakes and have great vegetarian food for at least 20 years. And it's an institution in New Haven. Have you gotten to try that? Or maybe something that's going to be on your list?
It is. I've been there before, and I gave it serious consideration about including it in the book. One of the things that was a challenge here is I had to spread these things out all over the state. I wanted to give as much equal geographic distribution as I could without overloading too much, excuse me, in one place. But I am a big fan of Claire's, and I think she's done an amazing job over the years. And it's, it's within walking distance now, so I'll be down there on a regular basis. I have dined there 2 or 3 times before in the past, and it's a great spot.
Very good. Okay. Someone wants to know what the name of the place that you mentioned in the Mystic area that had what you feel is the best battered fish and chips.
Oh, okay. That is that's Flanders Fish Market. Flanders Fish Market, and it's in Flanders, which is a part of East Lyme, Connecticut. So it's not actually in Mystic, but it's in East Lyme. But it's a wonderful place. The restaurant there is fantastic, and that's again that and probably Captain Scott's also has wonderful. That's theirs is breaded and not battered, if you understand the difference there. But they're all good. Those two places I recommend very highly though for their fish and chips.
Okay. Are there certain aspects or qualities that you look for specifically when going to these restaurants and debating whether you were going to include them in your book or not?
Well, I think the quality of the food is number one, of course. You
Mhm.
want something that's really interesting, different, unique, something that really speaks to the owners and what it is, they're all about. And then a lot of there are other things, there are other factors. Sometimes it's historical things. Some of these restaurants I have in here are, one, like I said, the Grano Arso's in a classic old bank building. In New Haven, I have Union League Cafe, which is a beautiful old stone mansion. Millwright's restaurant out in Simsbury in an old converted 18th century, sawmill or a grist mill of some sort on a stream. Those things can factor in. Food's the most important thing. And then just the atmosphere of the place. Is this a fun place to come sit and have a good meal, and relax, just enjoy yourself. That's pretty much it, I guess.
Okay, and we'll make this the last question because we are nearing 8 o'clock, and this is a fun one, I think. Who, if you have one, is your favorite celebrity chef?
Oh dear, let me think about that. Well, probably was Julia Childs once upon a day. Let me think. Celebrity chef. I tend to be more of a PBS person than a Food Network person. I prefer the ones who are sort of more encouraging and teaching. Lydia Bastianich, I think, does a great job with Italian food.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of some of the other. Jacques Pepin, of course, he's a local guy. I think he's great. And just the way he does things. And it's not just the food that he makes, but it's just his whole attitude toward the whole thing. He's very relaxed about it. It's all about love. It's all about love. It's not about competition. It's not about trying to beat the chef standing next to you. It's about trying to make something wonderful and, serve a nice table of food.
Yeah, he is a great chef. We've actually done events with him before with his cookbook, so
Right.
pretty good guy.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
but yeah,
it is almost 8 o'clock, so we are going to wrap things up. I want to thank you, Mike, so much for being here tonight. All your suggestions were so amazing, and I think everybody needs to go and purchase this book, whether it's a Christmas gift, whether it's for yourself. I think we all need to go and try all these recommendations. So make sure you purchase your copy of Unique Eats and Eateries of Connecticut, whether it's for you or someone else. I think anyone who reads this would enjoy it. So thank you again, Mike, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, and bon appetit, everybody. Happy holidays.